All right. Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Diamond Rivera of the Live Discussions with Diamond podcast, and you're tuned in tonight to a very, very special episode. But before we do get started, this episode is sponsored by Tubachata Radio, where you can listen to this interview live in high quality. And tonight, people, we really have a legend on the platform tonight, all the way from New York City. We have the amazing, the talented, the legendary Frankie Martinez.
The talented and legendary. What an introduction.
Listen, Frankie, man. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you on the platform tonight.
Thank you, sir. The honor is mine. I'm always extremely grateful that anybody is even thinking of me. So thank you for having me. I'm happy to share.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, like I've told you also privately, this talk for me has been a long time coming. Being a New York dancer for over 2+ decades, you, sir, and Abakua have been really an institution in the New York City Latin dance scene, especially with Afro Latin, and really also breeding a new generation of dancers that really, to me, are symbols of just how do I just say creativity, fluidity, and the list goes on. But tonight is a chance for us to celebrate all of the success that you've had thus far.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it seems like an eternity and a lifetime of kind of constant nonstop work. But when you step back for a second and you look at everything, it's pretty overwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, especially this past year that we've had and just the craziness that's been going on. Before we really get started with things, how have you been thus far?
I'm good. I've been good. I cannot complain about anything. I am of the mind that I'm extremely fortunate that I'm able to find a way to continue to make a living from my home, and that was really the issue that presented itself, as it has with so many people. And so knowing that there are people that might not have been able to figure that part out is it pains me to think about, but it also makes me extremely grateful that I'm in the position that I'm in to be able to keep myself okay and keep myself fed and keep the rent paid. Yeah. Scrapping and fighting and hustling and doing what I have to do, but I'm in a position to do that. Other than that, I am a simple guy. I like to be home. I spend a lot of time, reflective time, a lot of time working on myself and my craft. Learning, reading. I'm that type of guy. I enjoy being out, but I have to kind of be coaxed out, coaxed onto the plane, coaxed into another country, and then once I'm there, I really have the time of my life. But I'm usually thinking about being home. I think I was traumatized in the Navy, and I, that longing to just be back home. I think it's always with me. So, and I think I needed a break too. I was a little burnt out, and I needed a pause. I didn't need it like this, but I definitely feel refreshed to a certain degree.
Yeah, I mean, like we've spoken as well. I think for a lot of artists, this past year has been to describe it, really a time of self-reflection, really understanding what's really important, being able to kind of decompress, pick yourself back up, and really get back in the game. Also understanding as well throughout this year, mental health is a really big thing, and understanding what a lot of artists that we've known over the years, there are some that haven't been able to adapt to the social media alternative of online classes, promotion, branding, and realizing yourself or Abakua have still been able to do that, even through all the adversity. That
Yeah.
is something so remarkable. And also, too, we're going to be talking about your time in the military. We'll definitely get into
Yeah.
that. But at least before we get started into things as well, just to let you know, throughout the night, we'll be having live comments coming in. For example, we have Aisha here.
Aisha.
Yes, as
Hi,
well as
Mama.
Leah
Leah. Hi, Mommy.
and Miss Lori
Oh,
Inez.
Miss Anna Perez Piazza.
And
Mrs.
yes, and now I love really understanding the artist, especially beyond the stage, but also realizing of kind of the beginnings of how everything started. And I know you've talked about it for so many years, but I definitely would love to know, as well as the audience, of really who was Frankie before dance came into your life.
I was, I'm still the same dude. I'm still the same dude. I was a fanatic traditional martial artist and a teacher of martial arts, traditional Japanese martial arts. And I was a, I mean, that was my life. Everything I did outside of that was to kind of facilitate and allow me to practice karate and to teach karate and to kind of walk that path. You know, I was a samurai walking around. You know, my mother she could spot me from the bus. She would say, "That's my son walking over there," because I walked different than other people. You know, I was living that life. You know, so my first karate instructor got me into Zen Buddhism, and he kind of presented it to me as the next thing that I needed to start to consider, and to, you know, it was the next place that I was going. And and then he kind of retired and left the school with me. And so I continued to go to this Chinese Zen meditation center, which they call Chan in Chinese, here in Queens, in Jackson Heights, Queens. And I kept going there on my own, you know, listening to the lectures, having lunch, talking to the masters there. And when I first got into college, I was like ravenously kind of absorbing anything that I could that had to do with Zen. I went through this really heavy, like, you know, this is it. This is the feeling that I was looking for, you know, in my life. So that was me. You know, I was basically a, you know, a Queens samurai, Queens, New York samurai walking around. And my parents kind of got me into martial arts. They both studied Wing Chun Kung Fu. They were both huge Bruce Lee fans. And my mother only stopped because she was pregnant with me. And my father continued for 2 years after I was born. But it was kind of expected that I get into that. I kind of knew I was always gonna go that way, you know. Yeah, so that was me before dance, you know, and that was me for a while during the beginning of dance, and it then became me again later on when dance settled into my bones.
Definitely. I mean, and it's amazing how you speak about the martial arts, Wing Chun, which was the art form that Bruce Lee taught.
Right.
And stories that I've heard from my parents as well was especially during the 70s, even when I would say maybe early 70s with Kato and Green Hornet and Enter the Dragon.
Right.
With those movies, that my parents used to tell me stories of when those movies came out, everyone thought they could just do those moves in the street. And I think it was the movement. It was something different. You know, and understanding that your parents were very involved in it. And I think also that, do you feel like it helped with the discipline factor of you being young? Do you feel like you gained a lot more discipline at an earlier age?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we were, you know, that's a staple, especially of traditional Japanese martial arts. It's not such a big thing in other types of martial art. But you know, I kind of started with that Karate Kid phase of, there was this influx of people in like 1984 that were rushing into dojos because of that movie. And I didn't start because of that movie, but I was part of that wave, you know, like it just kind of happened to coincide with what was happening there. And a lot of people were bringing their kids to martial arts for discipline, you know, like for the structure that it provided, for the life lessons that it provided, for the you know, that really visceral discipline, you know. And it develops a different idea about discipline as well, and respect. And it's not, it's a little bit different than what the person from outside considers discipline and respect. You really learn how that functions in your life, and the metaphors are constantly made, the connections are constantly made for you as you're growing. And because I was a child, I was 9 years old when I started. Because you're a child, your brain is developing
Yes.
with these concepts. So I think it's why I was so primed for the Zen aspect of it as I got into my teens, and why I see the world the way I see it. I don't think I have a choice anymore but to see the world around me through that lens. And so it didn't matter what I was approaching. I always approached it with those concepts. Those concepts were part of my sinew at that point. And so, when it came to study something else, the path was very clear for me in terms of how to approach that, and how to hold myself accountable, for the higher concepts that are involved in something like that.
Got you. And I also think you talked about you had an interest in aviation.
Yeah. My father was an aviation nut. Is an aviation nut. He he would stop us constantly if we were walking to look and look, and he's always looking up, and anything that was flying, forget it. And any movie that had any kind of aircraft in it, he was like a child with that stuff. And so it kind of was infectious. And I my decision, part of my decision to go into the Navy was that I figured I could learn to fly helicopters there for free without having to pay for it, because my sister was getting ready to go into university, and my sister's kind of like a certified genius. And so she wanted to go to a school that nobody could afford. And with me going to school at the same time, it was she was going to have to make a concession, and I didn't want that to be the case. So I figured I could remove myself from the equation, try to help financially by sending money back. But my goal was to make sure she got into school, and I figured I could learn to fly helicopters, while I was in the military, and see where that took me.
That's amazing. And the connection with us, you being in the Navy, me currently being in the Army.
Right.
I think too, the military kind of instills a specific type of discipline in you.
Yeah. Well,
You
that's
know,
an interesting conversation, is the difference between the military's concept of discipline and the martial arts concept of discipline. No, that's, yeah, but yeah. I didn't mean to cut you off, brother. Sorry.
no, not at all, not at all. I mean, it's even when you laugh, like we understand.
Yeah.
Especially people who've been in the military. There's a certain type of discipline you have, a certain type of patience level you have.
Right.
Also, it makes you so observant around the people around you,
Right.
not realizing that many of us have been stuck in a tunnel vision for so long.
Yeah.
But it's so important to observe. So my question now, in the military, when did you kind of find, I was from listening to other interviews as well, I believe that's where kind of dance maybe came about. Is that correct?
Yeah, in a serious way. Yeah, it happened there while I was in the military.
Gotcha. What is that story about? How did that happen?
I was dancing, like I always danced. I actually won, I used to win dance competitions at school dances, like freestyle dance competitions. I remember specifically winning a Cool Modi 12-inch single as a prize for a dance contest. The 12-inch singles for young people, they were albums, they were records like vinyl, but it was a single, and there was like 4 versions of the song: the remix, the Pete Rock remix, the Buddy remix, the reverse remix, the instrumental remix, and there was 2 sides, and it was just that song, and so every song that came out as a single. And so I actually early on was collecting those. A friend of mine from Jamaica, Queens, got me into that. He had a little collection. I was like, oh, this is bad. So I bought myself a little turntable. But yeah, so I used to dance, and because of the karate training, I was jumping into splits, and my physicality, and but it was funny because things that would happen to me while I was dancing were very subconscious, and there was a flow there that was very, very different to what I had experienced in martial arts. And I felt like, man, if I could get my martial arts to flow like this subconsciously, there would be something else. But so dance was around, and Latin dance specifically, and Latin music. My father was the Latin music guy. My mother was the Motown. You know, she was the Motown side of it. She had albums. She had a bunch of albums from an ex-boyfriend who was like the love of her life. That we couldn't tell my father that, but they were like gifts from him, and they had little love scribbles on them. And I actually still have those. But she had Willie Colon albums on vinyl, and she had a little record collection. But my father collected music, and he used to tell me all these stories about you know, the concerts he used to go to, and waiting online and going to see the battle of the two Titos, Tito Puente and Tito Rodriguez. And you know, he was actually our Latin thing, the Fania film. He was actually in that. He was in that. You know, my mother's always telling me, look for your father in those images, because he's there somewhere. I saw a few people in there that I think that I know now. Like I don't know if they're doppelgangers, or like I've seen some people that I'm like, what the hell? And they still look young. And sometimes you watch these old videos and you see people and you're like, wait a minute, that's my friend. I seen that person on the train.
Yeah.
Yeah, that spooked me out. But my father apparently was there, you know? So, and something about those stories used to kind of instill a sense of nostalgia in me that made me feel like I missed something. You know, I when he would talk about that stuff, I would always feel like I was born in the wrong time because I didn't get to experience that stuff with him, you know? So, you know, my mother used to be listening to Diana Ross and James Brown and Al Green and all that stuff while she was cleaning. And my father was always about the Latin music. So anytime we went specifically to any function where my father's family was present, we were always dancing, and we just didn't know what the hell we were doing, you know? To me, salsa was something that you learned in the family, you know? There was no salsa school. There was no, like, I had never observed a formal way to learn this stuff, you know? I mean, they existed, but I was completely unaware that they were there. And so when I did see somebody who I thought could actually do it, because it wasn't even about being good, it was just the fact that they could do it, that you could actually do that basic step with another person and not trip over your feet and trip over their feet and somehow communicate with them. Like, that was completely like alien and like an absolute superpower. You know, I always was envious of people that I saw that could actually do it. And I always thought, you know, I'll just do my little merengue and you know, stay safe, you know. But while I was in the military, there was a sense of homesickness that everybody kind of gets. And it started right away in boot camp, right? In basic training, right away, homesick, like writing letters to the girlfriend, you know, send me music, you know, singing with the guys immediately. You know, you start singing songs with the guys because you're all this nostalgia about home. And I'm realizing how much brain space has been taken up with musical lyrics. You know, like can't believe I know the lyrics to the song while we're singing. I mean, anything that kind of brought us home, you know, we would do it. Anything that kind of made us, it gave us that feeling of being home because we were kids, you know, and it was like the first time that we were away. And I happened to be, because I was about 19 years old, I happened to be right in the midst of going through kind of a personal exploration and you know, that this feeling of a Puerto Rican being born in New York and wanting to feel more Puerto Rican, you know, wanting to feel more connected to Puerto Rico, because I felt strangely less Puerto Rican than the Puerto Ricans there, right? I felt less legitimate, you know? And as a young man, you're going through that, kind of figuring out where you stand and what you're about and where you come from. And so Puerto Rico was kind of calling me at that time, you know, and so it wasn't just home. And I think part of it had to do with the compounding effect of being homesick, and how heavy the Latin culture is in New York, and how every time there was a movie with, and I can't remember the name, a movie with Wesley Snipes and Jennifer Lopez. It was, I think it was might have been the first movie she ever, what was it called?
Money Train?
Money Train, right. I saw that. I think I saw that while I was in A school in the military. And the way she spoke and her accent and the way she looked, and it was just like, oh my God, I want to go back home. You know, like there was anything that was like New York, Puerto Rican, or Puerto Rico, Puerto Rican. It was just calling to me. And so one of the ways that I was kind of satiating that was that I was asking my girlfriend to send me cassettes of Hot 97, not Hot 97, but La Mega, right? Yes. On Thursday nights, they used to have this old school, I don't even know, I haven't listened to radio in like 95 years, but on Thursday nights, they used to play just old school stuff, like just Fania stuff in the evenings. And so she would record those sets and send them to me on cassette. And I would lose my mind. And you know, by that time I was in A school, which is when you start, you know, the first school you go to when you're starting to kind of learn your craft. I didn't get to fly, by the way, because my eyesight wasn't up to military standards. They didn't tell me that was even a possibility until I had already signed the contract, and that's a whole.
That's how they get you.
That's another discussion. But so then in my B school, my secondary school, where I was learning the specific test bench that I was going to be working on, because I stayed in the aviation field. I started to do avionics, aviation electronics, which was like the second highest thing that you could do as an enlisted person behind the nuclear field. The test was, you know, your scores had to be a certain level in order to qualify for that. So I figured I'll be around the planes. You know, I got kind of hoodwinked. Everything worked out for my sister, by the way. She went to Cornell University. She graduated. I got stuck in the Navy, not doing what I wanted to do for 2 years. But I found dance, right? So my father, in my B school was in Florida, in Jacksonville, Florida. My father was living in Palm Coast, which was at the time of developing community. There was nothing there at the time, but they had bought property. And so him and my mother had been divorced since I was 5 years old. And he had been remarried, and I have a little brother from that marriage, and they were in Florida. And so the second I got to Florida, I hadn't spoken to him in 2 years, but immediately I felt like I needed to reconnect with him, especially with everything I was going through, because he's the one I wanted to talk to now. You know, like I wanted to talk about the music. I wanted to listen to that stuff with him, and so he came and dropped me off a car, a Chevy Nova, 1984 Chevy Nova, right? No power steering. He left that car with me on the base so that I could, on the weekends, run back and forth to see them. And that's where it really started. It became this obsession now, because we would be dancing, listening, and singing in the car. And I was of enough of an age that if they didn't check my ID, I could kind of sneak into a club. And I saw people in Florida dancing in a way that I could perceive was formalized, right? Where they had gone somewhere to learn this. And I said, and I thought, wait a minute, this is like, if this is a possibility, I have to do this, because I was kind of in this spiral towards, you know, myself and Puerto Rico, my Puerto Ricanness, and the music kind of took over that. I was always a very musical person, and the music was really the entry point. And I think I because of the physical way that I had learned to express myself in the martial arts, it was natural for me to feel like I needed to go a little step further and actually get my body involved in this. And so the second I saw that was a possibility, you know, it changed the way I thought about, you know, possibly learning to dance. And I felt like, you know, I'm seeing people of Asian descent doing it, and I can't do it, you know, and I'm already feeling a little self-conscious about my Puerto Ricanness. So, so I was like, I have to do this. Like this will, you know, this will put me in a position culturally to feel more self-confident about that part of myself, you know? And so it started there. The second I got out of the military, I went nuts looking for, because in Virginia at that time I was stationed in
Fort Lee.
in Virginia Beach in
Okay.
NAS Oceana.
Gotcha.
I was COPDET, which means that I was attached to in Norfolk. I was attached to the Roosevelt, an aircraft carrier, and so whenever the Roosevelt actually went on deployment, I had to go with them. So those were the best orders I could get. Finishing second in my class, you get to pick according to your standing in class. So I was trying to get shore duty. I was trying to get something in New York, something maybe in Puerto Rico, but the best I could do was Virginia COPDET, which meant that I was on land most of the time, but if the ship left, I had to go with it. So yeah, in Virginia, there was nowhere to go and learn that at that time. So I had to wait until I was actually out. And the second I got out, I went looking for a dance school. And it kind of just snowballed from there.
Wow. That's amazing, because something you said earlier when you talked about a lot of Puerto Ricans, especially myself, that topic of identity, understanding that many people, of course, who are Puerto Rican are proud, but there's always that identity crisis for some, not being literally on the island, but also the perception of the people on the island, of the people in the States. It runs very deep. And you talking about how dance you felt was going to be a factor in helping you kind of solidify that identity, that actually was very similar to my story. I mean, I was much younger, but my grandmother, understanding that my Spanish wasn't as fluent, so she said, let me put you into a program that hopefully will help you appreciate your culture even more. And I'm honestly, through dance, many, many beautiful moments, and helped me understand about being Puerto Rican, being Latino, and appreciating that, because especially being in the States, it's so different than being on the island. And
Yeah.
you yourself talking about, just trying to find some way to help yourself feel closer to your heritage is something really deep, because many, many people, and we also know in the military, we have the Puerto Ricans from Puerto Rico coming in and bringing
Yeah.
their own flavor. And it kind of
Right.
like, want to search for more. So then now my question is, when was or where was the first class you took?
I ended up at a place called, I think it was called The Dance Club, and it was in Queens, and it was a damn ballroom studio,
Mhm.
and the thing was that I didn't know, I was just happy to find out that salsa was being taught formally in some
Mhm.
capacity. I had no idea that there was ballroom styles, and there was nightclub styles, and there was mambo, and I had no clue, right? And so I'm looking this up in the yellow pages, right? This is the time of the yellow pages.
Yeah.
I'm looking this up in the yellow pages, and it said salsa, and I said, there it is, I'm going, and I ended up there, and I realized pretty early on that it wasn't what I was looking for, but there happened to be a gentleman there who was Dominican, and he said, I know what you're looking for. And he told me that you need to go to Latin Quarter on Thursday nights.
Mm.
You need to go to Copa on Tuesday nights. And you need to sit on the wall and watch these people and figure out what they're doing, because that's where they are,
Mhm.
But I stayed in that ballroom place. They tried to make me a teacher, like ballroom, those ballroom schools, especially at that time, I don't know how things are now, but they had a way of getting your damn wallet out of your pocket. Like every time I walked in there, I walked out broker, and I don't know how it happened. Like the guy kept talking to me, and you're going to be a teacher, and you're so talented. And then somehow my credit card would jump out of my damn
God.
wallet, and it was like, damn it, And so I got stuck there. Like I was stuck there. Like it was like almost like in a cult. Like I needed the FBI to rescue me, I got stuck there for 8 months.
Wow.
But the funny thing is that while I was there, I met this guy, George, who ended up being a police officer. But me and him started searching together.
Mhm.
And, we started going to places that he had prescribed. I started getting wind of the fact that when the going into Latin Quarter on a Thursday night, going up those steps, right? There were these steps with carpet on them, and you just hear the bass would be pumping from the street sometimes, you know? And yeah, Mike, man, and they still got money. I'm still looking for those. If I find them in an alley, I'm getting my money back. But yeah, hearing the bass going, I mean, I was intimidated, you know, like there was I was so excited and so like inspired. I was almost paralyzed. And then seeing what I was seeing there with the dancers. And I remember Amaryllis from Santo Rico, one of the she was at that time, she was with Caribbean Soul with Ismael. But I saw her and I was like, I fell in love in a second. I was like, oh my God, I need to be able to dance with a woman like that, you know? And she's dancing with all these people and everybody's just dancing together. And I'm like, how are they doing this, you know? Because in the ballroom place, I had to dance with the person I practiced with. I couldn't figure out how to get that stuff to work on anybody else. I had to take her with me if we wanted to dance socially. And so, yeah, just the feeling I would get seeing those people dancing like that at the Copa too, and it was a different vibe at the Copa at that time. It was when it was on 57th.
Yeah, I think
on the west side, and they had that Tuesday night thing going, and El Gran Combo was always there, but it was like going into Latin Quarter, I got a flyer to Eddie's classes, because Eddie used to pay this homeless guy $20 to go hand out flyers in front of Latin Quarter, and the guy would do it gladly. It was like a little job for him, you know what I mean? And he would just sit there handing these flyers out, and I was the name from the flyer. And then I had a friend who was, I don't know if that means Eddie's cheap and he didn't want to hire. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that was bad what I just said. but that was slick. That was slick, you know. So I got a flyer. Everybody did at that time, and so I was thinking, this is where these people are learning, and they're all going to the same place. Simultaneously, a friend of mine who was a little younger than us, but he was hanging out with all my friends from school, and he strangely had danced with Eddie's in the late 80s. He danced with Eddie's kids group. And he used to get on, he told me I was on stage with El Canario and I was on stage with Celia Cruz. And I was like, oh crap. Like this is the guy, that's the guy I'm getting the flyers from, you know, that has to be the place, you know, that has to be where everybody's going and where I need to go to get into what I wanted to get into, because the ballroom place was holding me back from getting to that stuff, you know, that I could tell right away that's what I wanted. So yeah, and then it was just a matter of getting the courage up, me and George, to actually walk into a class, because one day I drove up after karate training. I drove up. I had a little Mazda MX-6 that I bought for like $3,000 when I got out of the Navy. It was red. Somebody stole that car in Jersey City. I was so pissed. And I had the steering wheel. The steering wheel would come off. They still took the car. I had the steering wheel in the street, and my car was gone.
Oh my God.
Anyway, yeah, we drove up, and I could see in the window. Eddie was on 57th and 8th Avenue. They were on the second floor on the weekends, and they were in the middle of the block upstairs. I forgot what those studios ended up being called. They're still around. I've rehearsed there a few times. But on the weekdays, he was inside the building, and me and George first went up, and they were rehearsing. The company was rehearsing, and yeah, McDonald's right before Latin Quarter. Will Lee has been dancing. I mean, he was taking classes when I was taking classes. That dude is OG as OG can get. He was there taking classes while I was taking classes. He's been around forever. Anyway, he talking about McDonald's now. He got me all sidetracked. Anyway, it was a rehearsal, and we went up and we peeked in the window, and I remember seeing Eddie Pino, this guy Sammy, and I thought Sammy was Eddie Torres, because I had this vision in my mind of what he was going to look like
Yeah.
because of how all the karate masters look like, you know, and I figured he was going to be this kind of, I thought he would be around my age now, you know, with some facial hair and kind of fit but groovy, and so I thought Sammy was Eddie Torres. I looked and I said, that must be him, you know. But they were rehearsing, and I remember Eddie actually looking at us because my head was in the window, and he gave me a look of death, and I said, I don't think we're supposed to be here, George, you know. So we went running and we left, and then when I drove up that day after class, after karate training, I could see them in the window, and I just saw these women kind of floating because you couldn't see their lower bodies. They were just floating back and forth. It looked like an aerobics class. And I said, hell no, I'm not going in there with them people doing that. You know what I mean? Because I was like, they're dancing already. Like I need somebody to, you know, like I was dancing on one and I was kind of faking things that I was seeing at the clubs. But there was a lot of intimidation, you know, again, and I think it really came down to me being insecure about not being Puerto Rican enough, you know, like I just felt like, you know, as much as I had confidence in my ability to learn a physical skill and a physical discipline, there was something about that was very scary to me, you know, and it's funny because that informs me now as a teacher and the way that I deal with students coming in and understanding that there's apprehension and there is a lot attached to dance in terms of self-image and self value, and so, you know, there was a saying in the ballroom studio where people walk up to the studio 4 or 5 times before they actually end up going in, you know, and it's funny like that because you like. With karate, just when I watched the class, I was like, I can do that. And I want to go do that, you know, and I was 9 years old and I went and did it. But with this, there was a lot of intimidation involved, you know. But yeah, that's how I found Eddie. I ended up finally going on a Monday night. I figured out what the schedule was, and Maria was teaching a beginner's class, and I felt super comfortable there. And she kept trying to throw me in Eddie's. He was teaching the intermediate class at the same time, and she kept trying to send me upstairs to Eddie's class, and I was like, wait, just give me a chance to settle in. I'm dancing on one. I need to acclimate first. And she's like, okay. But about 4 times in the class, she kept saying, you got to go upstairs because you already got something going on, you know? And so I did 2 weeks of that before I actually went into Eddie's class. And after class or at the end of class, Eddie walked up to me and said, don't stop doing this. Keep doing it because you got something here, you know? And that gave me the little bit of confidence that I needed to kind of, you know, I could do this. Because I actually stopped the ballroom stuff a few months in because I thought I couldn't do it. You know, I started feeling like, damn, I can't do this stuff. You know, it wasn't comprehensive the way Eddie taught was comprehensive, you know? So I felt really like I don't know that I can do this, but there was a girl teaching there that I just had a super crush on. And so I was like, man, if, you know, I haven't gone to class in a few weeks. I didn't want to go back, but I felt like, oh, I just want to go back and see this girl at least a little bit and see if I can ask her out. And so I ended up getting roped back in, and then my wallet shoots out the damn thing, and they kept me there for another 5 months. And I was able to, hey, Singapore, what's going on, guys? I was able to, you know, ride that out until I got some confidence with Eddie's. But I, you know, I really didn't feel capable at first. The second I got to Eddie's, I felt like I could be the best in the world if I applied myself. Yeah. It was a very different feeling. It was such a different feeling. I for some reason, it, like the Matrix, it just made sense to me the second I got to Eddie's. And because I was seeing these dancers and I was copying all this stuff that they were doing and I was poorly mimicking it at home. And then Eddie would teach stuff that I had seen before and had mimicked, but now I was learning how to do it. And it was like, oh, that's how that goes. And that's what that thing is. And I could just see the logic in it. Like it just made sense to me in a way that nothing else in my life made sense to me, you know? And so I was like, I was addicted, you know, I was hooked.
Yeah, I mean, even like you said, putting the pieces together, realizing those moments of it's not always a fairy tale beginning of, oh, you come in and everything just works. A lot of times, like you said, the intimidation factor, but the use of talking about yourself, because I think that's very important. A lot of dancers, especially, do deal with the insecurities of not knowing if they're good enough. But it's really, the meaning is we are our own worst critics. We critique ourselves harder than the next person. Most of the time it's about, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if we can do this. I can, but it's always I in the beginning. And like you said, finding that moment that, you started with Maria and she's seeing something in you to say, hey, you can move up. And then also you saying, going into Eddie's class, now everything came together. So now my question is, from taking Eddie's classes, when was that moment, or how long did it take for you to actually become part of the Eddie Torres dancers?
It was about 3 months in.
Mhm.
It was about 3 months in, and just to kind of harken back to your point about insecurity, now I observe just as much, if not more, insecurity in the established dancers that are traveling and teaching as I do in anybody else that is starting to dance. I still see those things clearly, and because I taught martial arts for so long, I've been teaching for damn near 40 years. I started teaching when I was 10 years old. I was already assisting my teacher. I was going with him to a separate dojo. And so, just in understanding students and trying to adapt how you're teaching students, how you're dealing with them, how you're trying to coax them out of that shell, I see insecurity everywhere. I think that it is, people mask it in different ways and they try to compensate for it in different ways. But I am, I'm very observative and I'm very kind of quiet, and I enjoy, because it helps me sharpen myself as a teacher. I enjoy observing people and figuring out the way that I observe myself. It helps keep that muscle sharp, that self-reflective muscle sharp about, am I being honest with myself? Am I, is my leg in the right position? Is my heart in the right position? So I did Shotokan Ryu Karate Do. He's asking about the martial art. We did a little bit of Aiki Jiu-Jitsu and a little bit of Kobudo, which is Okinawan weaponry.
Mm.
So yeah, that was the style of karate that I did. So yeah, I enjoy observing, and especially observing the hot shots, and the big shots, and because you see the same things, and they prance around and they carry themselves differently, but underneath that there's still a lot that I hope that they would get to working on, and so that is not something that just goes away. It's not something that goes away because you get good at dance. It's not. It is a fundamental part of our being, of every person's being, and the way we deal with that is manifested in so many different ways. Sometimes arrogance and overconfidence is an overcompensation for insecurity, and I can tell when the insecure people are uncomfortable. I can see it. I can tell when I'm making them uncomfortable.
Mhm.
I can tell when the situation is making them uncomfortable. They start, the ones that look for more attention, they start to get rowdy and silly. And, like those things is just like watching a kid, those things are very clear to me sometimes. And it's because I'm constantly, my teachers told me to constantly observe
Mhm.
myself and to constantly be working on those things, and to polish the mirror, they say in Zen, to take a rock and polish it into a mirror. It's an impossible task, which you keep polishing and you keep polishing, hoping that you'll see a reflection at some point. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because that's a big theme, and it's one of those things that I think we don't ever talk about. Everybody, just because you get on stage, you think you have courage, or people think that to get on stage it means that you now are not insecure. Let me tell you something. Sometimes it magnifies all that stuff. So yeah, I ended up, sorry for the tangent. I
Oh.
ended up, if I find there's something important in what you said that I feel is
Yeah.
is like more important than talking about,
Yeah.
you know, when I got into Eddie's company, I think I sometimes it's hard for me not to take that bait. But it was 3 months in, and after a month or so, I remember going to his, because he used to, on Sundays he would have this practice party. And it was supposed to be kind of just for us, but like a lot of dancers would come. Ismael would always bring his people from Jersey, and I kind of cut my teeth dancing with those women, the follows from Caribbean Soul and that Jersey crew. You know, I grew up with them. They're very special to me because they were there when like from the beginning. They were always there. They always loved dancing with us, and they loved the music that Eddie was playing and Eddie was running the music off of a mini disc in those parties. Mini discs were these little square, it was like the next move after the regular CDs. They tried to go to these little CDs that were in this little plastic cases, and it was like the coolest thing ever. And I started using that to teach myself. When I started teaching, I was using mini disc, and it was like, you know, mini discs. It lasted like a week and a half, and it was gone. But yeah, so at those parties, the first party after the first month, it kind of coincided with my first month there, the first time that party happened. And I danced with a bunch of women, but I told them, I'm more comfortable on one.
Yeah.
Do you mind if we dance on one? I'm just still getting my bearing. And they were kind enough to oblige me. And I had a bunch of dancers, and people that were in class with me were like, what the hell? How the hell are you able to do that stuff? And, you know, I was trying to explain to them, I'm kind of getting away with it, but I'm doing it wrong. I'm not quite comfortable on two yet, you know?
Love the honesty.
The following month, I danced with every single person in that room. Like I made it a point to dance with every single person in that room on two. And I remember that part specifically. I had made a little group of friends, and the girls kept kind of poking and prodding at Eddie to bring me into the company. And I remember him saying, "There's a place for him. There's a place for him. You know, when he's ready, there's a spot for him. You know." And I was very embarrassed by them suggesting that, but I very quickly kind of, because I think people were unaware of the fact that I had taken some classes before, and that I was faking a lot of stuff before I was taking classes with my father. And so they just thought that I was this super prodigy. You know, they used to call me prodigy and alien because you know, it seemed like I was absorbing this stuff super quickly.
Yeah.
And I was, but it was because of things that I had done before getting there, you know, and also the karate training and the way that I know how to practice and get something in my body to stick, you know. But so they kept kind of advocating for me. And then I remember after a class, he told me to come to rehearsal. And it was about 3 months in. And 2 months after that was my first performance at Madison Square Garden in front of 20,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah. The day that I got to the rehearsal, the first day of rehearsal, he actually pretty much sent everybody home except for a list of dancers that were going to do Madison Square Garden. And I was on that list somehow with no experience. I was petrified, and I was sure he was going to cut me until we were backstage. Until I came off after the first number, I thought he was going to tell me to sit down. I'm out, you know?
Yeah.
But he basically sent everybody home. He kept a group of people that were there. Everybody else went home, and a bunch of dancers that I had never seen before all of a sudden were called up and brought in. And these were dancers, older dancers that had danced with Eddie before, or that Eddie was comfortable working with, that he knew were sharp enough to make that turnaround in 2 months to do, because we were doing basically, you know, we were choreographing numbers, but we were going to have to do them to live arrangements. And so we were choreographing sections. We didn't know that those sections were even going to be there, because the arrangement on stage ends up being very different. So all of a sudden, all these other dancers come in, and the girl that was kind of my ambassador. I had a crush on her. I had a crush on everybody. I was 19 years old. She was telling me, you got to watch this guy, and you got to watch this guy, and this guy really has something to offer you. I remember Alan Diaz, this dancer, Alan Diaz, Dominican dancer. That dude came in, and I was like, oh my God. And she's like, you got to watch him. This guy can really, give you something that you can work with, And so all of a sudden, these dancers, Amanda Stilo, she came up to me. She's like, I'm happy you're here because we need more good men in this company. And I was like, oh shit. It's like, I was so intimidated and so in awe of these dancers, and the women especially, because I'd never seen such powerful, confident looking women, like that couldn't fight. You know what I mean? Like it was in karate, you see that, but man, the way these women walked around and how comfortable they were doing this stuff, it blew my mind. But yeah, it was 3 months in. It was really fast. And I was very much not ready, to tell you the truth. I was very much the concept of dancing alone, the concept of doing these long shine sequences that Eddie is so well known for. That was completely foreign to me. I was fine with a woman in front of me, and I could absorb that material, but that concept of, memorizing these sequences and being able to do that properly with music was a concept that I was really just getting there, because that's not how we necessarily practice that stuff in class, So yeah, I thought it was a great opportunity for me to learn things that regular students weren't going to be able to learn through the choreography, and things that we might not use. And it would help me get a leg up on things that I could then bring to the club in my quest to try and be the baddest man in the nightclubs in New York City. And so I figured this was secret information that I could get a hold of that, would enhance my abilities on the dance floor when I went out to dance. And that's how I kind of approached it, But yes, 5 months in the fire.
And I mean, many people, of course, who know of the Eddie Torres dancers, they were, especially coming from Eddie Torres, the premier company back in those days, and realizing the alumni that have come in and out of that company, then becoming instructors, then becoming studio owners, then becoming directors. I mean, as yourself, dancing with Eddie Torres, how long was it before you decided to create your own company?
It was about 4 years in. I spent 4 years with Eddie from 96 to 2000. And there was a period in that fourth year where I really kind of got my bearing. I was one of the principal dancers in the company. There were really only 3 of us that were like considered principal dancers in the company. All the choreographies I used to teach the choreographies to the other dancers. Like he would sit everybody down. He would sit in a chair. He would call stuff out to me, and he would work the choreography out in his head with me there, standing there in front of him. And try this now. After that, do this. And I used to stand there, boom, and then I would end up teaching it to all the guys in a corner. And so I had really gotten my bearing, and I started to kind of get my feeling of the things that I was attracted to and the things that I thought were beautiful. And some of those things conflicted with the things that Eddie thought was beautiful, and some of the things I ended up being very uncomfortable doing on stage, and it kind of wasn't me, because we were in this. When you dance with someone and you're under the directorship of someone, and I think it's such an important part of the development of dancers, if their goal is to end up on stage or to end up as choreographers, that education of working with a company, working with a large group, of being part of something sophisticated and something where you're this small cog, and you have to take care of your 4x4, and you have to make sure that your part of this larger thing is taken care of, so you don't let these people down. and how to be a soldier that way. You know, I because of my karate training and the way that I was with my teacher, you know, I used to walk around carrying my teacher's bag, you know, and I would be at tournaments in plain clothes, carrying my teacher's bag around, getting him water, getting him whatever he needed. And everybody's like, who's this Puerto Rican guy around Master Williams all the time? And I was like his gopher, but that was like my submission to him, and my reverence for him, and the fact that you know, he instilled in us not to. I was a 3rd-degree black belt, and running around getting him water, and I was the one cleaning the dojo floor. You know, like those things were important, and he made sure that we understood those things. And so I don't even remember why I brought that up. What the hell were we talking about?
No, it was about the notion of when you knew that moment.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You could
Sorry.
create.
There's like 2 worlds happening in my head, and once I go into karate, it's like my head starts going. So yeah, I you know, I was of this mind that I was a soldier. Like whatever he needed me to do in order to make the presentation work, I was ready to do. And one thing was sitting down. You know, he sat me down many a times because somebody was sick or somebody was hurt, and they happened to be my counterpart, and so my part all of a sudden wasn't valid the same way anymore, or they needed a girl switch or a partner switch or something, and Frankie, I need you to sit this one out. No problem, you know, like whatever we need to do, I'll cheerlead, I'll help people get ready. You know, that was my thing. That was comfortable for me. I was a soldier in his company. I never ran up to Eddie and asked him questions and talked to him like he was a friend of mine. I didn't come from that, you know, like the teacher is the teacher, and there's a certain reverence and a certain distance. And if the teacher wants to bring you into that circle, then you wait for that to happen. Some people are selected in there, and it's a privilege and an honor to be part of that, and you respect that, you know. And so I think Eddie very much respected the fact that I didn't kiss his butt, you know. And a lot of dance, you know, a lot of the what he dealt with on a daily basis was people trying to be close to him, because we were competitive as hell, you know. It was like a ballet company. There were positions, you know, like if you wanted to get out of the chorus, you needed to show, yes, you know, you needed to really knuckle up so that you could be selected to do one of the main parts, you know. And it was like there was a lot of cattiness and a lot of like pettiness, a lot of people just like cutthroat, you know, stepping on your foot, like jumping in front of you in a performance. You know, like he kind of set it up like that, you know. And so not necessarily for myself and for Franklin and Danny, who were kind of the trio of young dancers that started to kind of take the helm after a while. But things, I mean, I just saw people going at each other's throats, trying to have position and trying to have Eddie's attention, you know. And I think he really respected the way that I comported myself when I was around him, because it was from a distance. Eddie has a martial arts background as well. He did a little. I think he did a little bit of Goju-Ryu karate. So I think he dug that, and he actually told me one time. He said, if it were anyone that I would kind of trust with taking over for me, if I felt my time was done, he said it would be you, because you've never presented yourself in a way that I felt I had to guard myself from. Because Eddie, I felt like Eddie had been done dirty by a lot of people, and I felt like he was a little traumatized at being taken advantage of, and he was in that position. You know, he was in that position, and at that time, because there was really only one Eddie Torres, that wasn't happening. You had Papito Hala Hala in Puerto Rico, but that was a separate world, and there was no. Right when I started, the whole international festival concept was getting going, you know, and so it still wasn't a thing for us, you know, and so Eddie was like the only avenue to that place, you know. And so he dealt with a lot of things, and I think it made him very weary of people. And so anyhow, I started to feel like I had different ideas than he did in terms of what I felt comfortable and what I thought was beautiful, and the aesthetic and the things that I felt might have been a little bit embarrassing to kind of, present for
Mhm.
me as an individual. And so I started to get to a point where I felt like it was coming to time where I was going to have to start to consider moving on. And it was funny how it happened, because I was very much trying to get everything that I could from Eddie in terms of his process as a choreographer. I didn't know that I wanted to be a choreographer, but I knew that information, I would be stupid not to observe and record
Mhm.
his processes and how he went about doing that, because everything to me that I could possibly get my hands on was a way for me to enhance my understanding of the dance. I learned to do I would do the follows. Eddie used to do these warm-ups before we did partner work, where he would have all the girls, all the follows, do the follow footwork, and he would call it
Mhm.
out just like they were shines, and they would do their footwork, and I would do it with them. And then all the fellas come up, and now we're going to do the leads footwork, all the basic step switches, bang, and then you would call it out: 3 o'clock right turn, walk around left turn, back spot turn, half hook, half right turn, and we would boom, we would be jamming, but doing the footwork that we would then be required to do
Mhm.
during the turn pattern. And learning the follows footwork was like, there's stuff in there that we're not getting. I need to get it. Like I need to make sure that I'm understanding all the possibilities fully. And so the choreography aspect was another thing Eddie had to offer. He wasn't really apprenticing in that. He wasn't really like coaching people in choreography. But as far as I was concerned, I was apprenticing under him in that. And because he was directly using me in that process,
Mhm.
I was getting very familiar with the way that he started, the way he was thinking, the way he was thinking musically, and how he was getting these steps to somehow fit into vamps and phrases and chops on the drums. And he was getting the steps that we were doing in class to fit in perfectly with these little moments in the music. And it was like, his ear and his, all of that stuff I was soaking that stuff in. And so I didn't want to leave before I felt like I had really sucked him dry of what he had to offer as a team. And it's my responsibility as a student to do that, is
Yeah.
to, like, everything I can possibly learn. I'm an open vessel, like, feed me,
Mhm.
So I wanted to make sure that I was in a comfortable place in terms of what I felt I needed in terms of a basic structure to get going as a choreographer. And then suddenly Tito Puente died.
Mhm.
And it was funny because we were on stage with him and we had given him a birthday cake. There's a video of this floating around and we actually come out with the birthday cake, and it's in the video. I think it's on YouTube somewhere. I remember Will telling me he was in a restaurant eating Latin food and they were playing the video, and he's like, I'm watching you right now dancing with Tito Puente in this restaurant. I'm eating Spanish food. I said, get out of here. But we had just seen him. It was in Manhattan Center. We had just done the show. And 2 weeks after that, he passed away. And Eddie, like, Tito to Eddie was like, my karate instructor is to me. Like, that destroyed him.
Yeah.
When Tito died. And so the very next rehearsal, he said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm disbanding the company. If I don't call you, it means I don't want to work with you. And, that's it. I don't want to live the rest of my days stressed about these shows and this choreography. I just want to teach and be comfortable and do that. And so Apache is getting curious here. See if we get a shot. Come here, puppy. He's looking at my matcha too. Don't mess with my.
Mashallah.
So this is Apache. This is my Basenji boy. I have 2 of them.
Dog.
So So he sent us all home, you know? And it was funny because I was like, oh my God. There was a one of the warnings I got from this girl that who I ended up dating and for a little while, and she kind of was the one showing me the ropes, and she was giving me all this advice on what to look out for and stuff like that. And I remember her saying, you know, be careful because Eddie is going to fall in love with you, and then he's going to fall out of love with you, and he's going to fall in love with somebody else. And I've seen it happen. And if you look, when she would talk to me about the generation that came before, that first generation of dancers, you know, the Stacy Diaz and Dalil Thomas and all those guys, Aurelio, all those crazy dancers, Wilton Beltre. There were very few of them that he was still on good standing with, you know. He was something was up with him and Dalil that they didn't talk anymore. And it was like, I started to feel like there was no real good way to leave the company without ruining my relationship with Eddie. And so when he disbanded the company, it was almost like, boom, like perfect scenario, you know. Mm-hmm. It ended up not being, and I still went through that period of having to be on Eddie's bad side and having to reconcile with him and do all of that stuff. But I saw it as a perfect opportunity for me to start to play around in a more serious way with some of the ideas that were coming into my head. Let's keep it the front end here, Patch. The camera. So yeah, I it was about 4 years in. My last show, we did Manhattan. We did the New York Salsa Congress, the Bacardi and All Star Entertainment, who were the people that started the Congreso de la Salsa in Puerto Rico. You know, they were the first ones to get that going. They hadn't done an event in New York yet. And it was kind of weird to do an event in New York because, like, New York had its dance. It was like trying to sell the Statue of Liberty to New Yorkers. Like, maybe we haven't gone to see it, but we got it. It's here. Like, you know, I'm not going to go pay for that. It was kind of a difficult sell in New York to bring dancers from other places, you know, where it was like, we got the dancers are here, you know, like, so, but they finally did one in New York, and we were part of it with Eddie. That was my last big show. And I think I did, there's a video out there of me doing a contest in South Street Seaport with Yesenia Peralta, with Ismael Otero's sister. And during that competition, I was actually simultaneously performing with company. That was my last show. And during the breaks, I was competing. And then during the break of the competition, I performed with the company. And that was my very last show. And I think that was very early in the summer of 2000, because I know that by 2001, when the Bacardi Congreso de la Salsa happened, I was there with Abakua already. Wow. So yeah, it was right about 2000 that we did that. You know, it's funny. I think people thought I was a lot younger than I was at that time. And I remember somebody telling me at a Congress that, you know, that video when I was 17 or something like that. And no, I was already, you know, 21, 22. I was about 23 then, you know. Sorry, I was 25. I was 25, right? I was born in 75. So yeah, when I started getting myself together, I was already a grown man, you know, like I looked very young, and I was doing all this young stuff with my body because of the karate, but you know, I wasn't a kid anymore at that point. By the time I left Eddie, I was a kid. I felt like a kid going in, but I definitely, when I started traveling on my own and I started the company, you know, I looked like a kid, and I think a lot of people thought I was a lot younger than I was, and still do. But I definitely, you know, I was settled in my decision, and I was kind of ready for the next phase of my dance life, you know.
Yeah, I mean, realizing too, especially myself, when I started in '96, and I started with Starlight Dance Studio with the late Dave Melendez, and you yourself know, of course, David, realizing how much he contributed in the scene, but also created a dance school for teenagers and kids to grow up in. Because I also realized in this industry, there weren't many kids. It was more of an adult based industry, and schools like Starlight, Side Street, SBK in the Bronx, different schools were now
Young
they
Ambition.
young ambition, um, and really the list goes on. Understand
Yeah,
now there was a new generation of dancers, and they were younger.
it was super
Now,
young. Yeah.
yeah, getting that opportunity now to really travel the world and be exposed to artists like yourself. I myself, one of my favorite memories was when you performed the routine that everyone knows as Welcome to the Party. That was one of the routines for me and many other dancers my age. Our eyes were just glued to the TV and glued to the screen and glued to the stage because, and I had a lot of time over the years to think about this throughout generations, we've had people like Gene Kelly, Nicholas Brothers, Gregory Hines, Sammy Davis Jr., Eddie Torres in our industry, and people like you. When I mean categorizing all of these gentlemen specifically, was they had pieces of work that really became timeless. And it's a total different feeling when you're doing a partnered routine with other people around compared to doing a solo routine.
Yeah.
Or even with yourself, having people like Lorianne Perez doing that routine with you and realizing how you could take a song and create a story. I think, and as well here, what I want to bring up is something that Mike says, talking about generated the white jazz shoe fad. Many people who
Exactly. Right.
people don't understand. I mean, I was maybe 14, 15 when I
Yeah.
seen this routine and realizing a new trend was starting. I started seeing people literally at New York socials, whether it's Jimmy Anton's, I mean, all the socials in New York that were happening mid 2000s and late, now dressing like you. Now, from the shirts, from the pants, from the,
The hats.
yeah, the hats, the white shoes, always in the back pocket. And for me, it was a game changer because it wasn't just anymore different schools and companies just come to socials and congresses and dance. Now there were people that others were looking up to and trying to maybe, I would say, not just imitate or mimic, but kind of pay tribute to. Because now I felt, especially in the 2000s, you, especially New York, were a key symbol, as well as Eddie Torres and many other dancers. But single handedly, I would say, when you did Welcome to the Party, and even fast forwarding through that, it was really giving artists a new idea of how to approach songs. One of my favorite routines that I've talked to Leah about was when I saw you guys at Museum del Barrio. It was for an event for Baila Society, and when you did Dove, and when I
Yeah.
heard that, and I remember hearing that song years ago, and actually someone creating a story to it because it's more than just a routine; it's a production. And I think many people don't understand when you are performing on a stage, it's a responsibility that you're giving or the responsibility that you have to creating something meaningful, not just dancing on a stage and putting steps together, but creating a story that allows people to join in. And a question I have now of over the years that, routines you've done, what really could you tell me, maybe one routine, maybe two or a few that really just hit home for you that when you think about it, like you could be on a stage right now that you would love to perform?
It's difficult. I've never been a favorites type of person. I don't view life that way. I think that it's funny because Welcome to the Party started as a duet with Aisha, right? And I choreographed that on a car ride home from Toronto. And it was like a 9-hour drive, and I kept playing the damn song over and over again. And I pretty much choreographed almost the entire thing in the car on the way home, you know? And everybody wanted to be Frankie. Yeah. You know what happened was that when I finally did that as a solo, because nobody was doing that like that. Like, I think I've seen some stuff in the Palladium where some of the dancers, Cuban Pete, might have been by himself, but that was not really done. You know, that was how we functioned, you know? And so I had never seen a solo in my life up until that point, right? And I think I ended up doing it that way out of necessity, because I think I was in the process of training Lori to replace Aisha in the traveling with me, because that traveling with me was a huge responsibility. It was really tough. And Lori was very young. She was a kid, and her parents, I was basically like, you know, lend me your daughter. I will take care of her. I'll make sure she's safe. She gets, like, it was like her parents, her father would give me that side eye as he would load the luggage.
Yeah.
You know, I was responsible for this young woman, you know? And so in the midst of me training her to get ready to travel with me, Apache, come here. What is that? He's chewing on something. I have to be like a ninja in the house, because these dogs will go through anything in a second. So it's like Jurassic Park in here. Lori, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm sorry. So yeah, I mean, it was always like, oh goodness, you know, I got to make sure that, you know, I was on the men when we were traveling. You know, I had to like keep the men away from her. You know, she's gorgeous, you know, and it was like, and she's a kid. And I was like, you know, I kept thinking about her parents. I would see her father's look on his face whenever some guy would approach her at a Congress. But when I did that, I feel like there was this there was this new possibility, but also the same way that I feel like when I saw my karate instructor, my second karate instructor, to me, he embodied what the physical manifestation of the art form was, you know? And I think at the time, with the way I dressed and the way I had my hair and the way that I, you know, carried myself, and then the fact that I was doing this stuff, and it was very funky and edgy, and on that end of things, it wasn't your grandfather's mambo. It was like a very potent personal feeling that was being added into it, wrapped up in a package, you know, that people could identify that package. And it was basically like branding, you know, it was like branding the way they brand anybody today. But I think a lot of the young people saw me at that time as the Latin manifestation, personified of what a Latin dancer, what they thought a Latin dancer, what it would be cool for a Latin dancer to be like, you know. It was like the model of just like Bruce Lee. The second you start martial arts, it's like you have Bruce Lee in your head as like, that's what I'm supposed to end up like, you know? So I really believe that was what was happening. And a lot of people used to ask me, does it bother you? And people are imitating you. There were times where I felt like, because those people would then walk right by me without saying hello. And it was like, wait a minute, you got that hat and that for me, like, at least say hello to me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't act like you came up with that on your own. Those things used to bug me, but at the same time, I felt a great feeling of it was almost I was almost nervous about it, about the power that I felt I could have if I chose to on affecting people. And I felt like I needed to always be sharp and always be on and make sure that I wasn't doing myself or my company or a disservice in the way that I presented myself, because it was out there in the open for everybody to see, and people were responding to it. And so it was intimidating. I remember when I first felt that, me and Aisha did a number to Tito Rodriguez's Baranga. We wore these little kind of like these little those old 50s newsy hats with suspenders and the high pants. And I remember we did that in Denver, and the crowd reaction was just to the point where they made us do it again the last night. They wanted to see it again, and we ended up doing it a second time the last night of the event. And at that time, me and Aisha had been selected to be the New York representatives for Bacardi, and we sit with them and we were under contract with them. And whenever they had an event, we were the New York couple that they bring, along with Tito Ortos. At the time, he was dancing with Vanessa, Rogelio from Los Angeles, and if they couldn't get Johnny Vasquez or Francisco or Luis. And so we were like the LA, New York, and Puerto Rico crew that they would bring in. But anyway, the reaction to that number was so, and there was an older woman who came up to me afterwards, and I was just sitting there kind of like taking it all in. And she said, you know, I haven't felt like this since I was a young girl watching Fred Astaire on television, you know, and we were actually actively watching the video of the performance. And whether she was easily impressed or not, because looking at the video, I was like, wow, this is really, it really came out incredible. And I can't believe people are responding to it. It's like, you know, presenting work for the first time, and you never know, you know, just like, are people going to respond to this? Are they going to dig it? Are they not going to dig it? So yeah, I just felt overwhelmed. You know, I have these little moments where I remember exactly how I felt, like the pit of my stomach. I felt so nervous and like, I'm doing it. Like, I'm doing this. Like, people are digging it, you know? And yeah, that's such an iconic number, and the look of it. And yeah, so I think there are so many things, because they all encapsulate where I was at that moment, you know, where I was in my development. And I can actually look back at those numbers, the pieces even, you know, the larger pieces, and look at them, and I can remember, they bring me back to where my development was what the things that I was focusing on, the things that were important to me in the dance at the moment, the things that I was trying to say and how I was trying to say them. And they helped me reflect on where I was now, you know, and how I was a different person than the person that choreographed that at that time. Yeah. And so they're all like children to me. They're like my kids, you know, like, I don't throw away any of those choreographies. I'm not the type of person that choreographs stuff, you know, a mile a minute and a new number every week. Like, yeah, those things are important to me. Like, they're, you know, I do some drawing, hyper realistic graphite pencil drawings, and I did cartooning since I was a kid, and I paint. I can't bear to part with one of my drawings. Like, you know, people, you should sell that and you should do this. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know that I could give this up, because those drawings take 50, 90 hours to do, you know, like, and it's like, there's something of me there in those things, you know, and I it's hard for me to just like on to the next thing. And so yeah, I've even gone through processes of like rebuilding them now with what I understand, and going back and revisiting them, and refining concepts that I was struggling with at the time, and really bringing them to bear in these old numbers. But I don't like to, you know, have a favorite kid, and so you know, different numbers were received differently, different pieces were received differently, but they all reflected something different. You know, I don't choreograph anything unless that music makes me nervous, you know, unless it makes, if the music doesn't make me nervous, if I don't go through that moment of thinking, I can't do this, I can't manifest this physically. Yeah. If that doesn't happen, if I don't get that tinge, then it's a bad song for me to do, because it means that the song is something I've probably already dealt with. The type of song it is, I've already done. And as an artist, the last thing you want to do is become formulaic and start repeating yourself, you know, and because once that formula starts to become obvious, then you are stuck. It's like you're exposed, right? And so I kind of, I like to use the analogy of an actor in a movie. I don't want to see that actor cry the same way in two different movies. Like some people are really good at what they do, but it's always them. They're just good at crying the way they cry, you know? And then others will tailor the crying to the specific character in that particular representation.
Yeah.
And that's when you know you have somebody that's really working on a different level, you know, where they're bringing a new moment, a new realization, because I'm not the person I was when I choreographed the last thing I choreographed, you know? And so, and I don't want to say the same thing I said there. I want to say something else. I think part of what happens to us is that we have the option to either do cabaret or do art. Both of those things exist in our realm. And I believe that that most people are unaware that those two things exist, that for the most part, everybody believes that the cabaret side of it, and when I say cabaret, I mean like demonstration of an art form for the sake of demonstrating the art form, right?
Mm-hmm.
For people's amusement. So in other words, with what you normally see when you watch a Latin dance performance is, this is salsa, this is salsa, this is salsa. Look what I can do. Look what salsa is. This is what my body can do in salsa. This is salsa, right? They're just pretty much demonstrating the dance, you know, and the things they can do in the dance. Look what I can do, right? That's basically what you end up seeing. And that to me classified as kind of cabaret. It's for entertainment purposes. It's to amuse people. And I am, that's not me. Like, I don't want to be anybody's amusement, you know, like that. I find when people expect me to amuse them, it's like a, you know, I'm sure we've all had this experience where a girlfriend says, make me laugh, you know? And
Yeah.
what do you mean make you laugh? What the hell? You know, make me laugh. I feel, make you laugh like that. What am I, you know, like a puppy, you know? And so Beethoven had an issue with that. Like he stopped playing in public because he just felt like a monkey, like a trick pony, like he was a sideshow, like, you know, play for me, you know, like amuse me, you know? And so he was really funny and selective about who he ended up playing for, and he had to make that decision, you know? And so there's this other avenue where you can actually use the art form as a language to speak about stuff in life, right? That's a very different thing than just saying, here's salsa, this is what salsa looks like. Here's bachata, this is what bachata looks like.
Yeah.
You know, the art part of that comes to bear when you're not just demonstrating the thing, but that you have a grasp of the thing to the point where you can use it to discuss concepts in life that we can all relate to, right? That's music. That's what music is, right? And you have moments where the musicians get to show you their technical ability, but every song is trying to demonstrate something in life. It's talking about love. It's talking about hardship. It's talking about happiness. It's bringing you to an emotional state that you recognize immediately, because you have your songs that make you happy and you have your songs that you listen to when you feel sad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really say that about Latin dance performances. You know, there isn't that next level, or that I don't know that anybody really cares to even consider that as a possibility, you know, because it may not necessarily be the most popular possibility. It may not make you the most popular, you know. Pop music is not jazz or classical music, and pop music is making a lot more money than jazz or classical music, but there's a reason that's happening. And everybody who studies music knows that they can make a decision about how they are as a musician and what they choose to follow in terms of their craft and how they present that, and what the important things are for them in that craft. And so I was always about, do I know the dance well enough that I can actually communicate through it, concepts through it? And so when you see a piece, that piece comes across thematically very distinct from another piece. And it doesn't matter even if I'm doing the same movements, because the same movement has a different concept and a different feeling, a different approach to its execution
Yeah.
because there's a different emotion and a different moment being manifested through the movements have nothing to do with the content that's being delivered and how you vary that content. And so once that, every time I choreograph something, I am challenging myself to manifest that emotion that song is bringing to me. I want to ride that thing into people's consciousness, because the music does it
Yeah.
easily, right? Music makes you feel a certain way in a second, right? I want not just to demonstrate what the human body can do in a gymnastic sense, right? And because to me, it's not sustainable, right? It's you can only have fun with that for a certain amount of time before your body starts telling you this is not the way, to quote the Mandalorian. This is not the way. You get to a certain point where your life starts telling you maybe you should have started focusing on another way to
Yeah.
think about this before you start breaking down. And because you see it in ballet, right? You see the ballet teacher is not jumping around doing air tours and pirouettes. She's got 2 hip replacements, or she's sitting in a chair telling you what to do. She demonstrate it in their hobbled way, but that stuff there's an expiration date on that stuff,
Yeah.
And so how do I do what music does? That musicians, until they die, they're playing music and they're touching people, It's not predicated on their physical acumen, their physical prowess. It is their ability to touch people through this audio medium,
Yeah.
And so instead of me trying to come up with a new way to affect people, I just ride that wave that if I can show them the song that's affecting them in a certain way, if I can manifest it physically, I'm going to get right in there on that train that's hitting them in the gut. I'm able to not only get them to experience what they're feeling physically, but I can teach them stuff in the music that they weren't even able to hear before I presented it to them.
Yes. Yes.
And it broadens their ability to accept it. It opens up the track now that feeling's getting delivered to. They can deepen their sense of catharsis and release, because I'm presenting the song in a way that might allow them to view the song in a more complete way than they might have without me there. So that's always been my approach, from the beginning. I wanted to move away from just jumping up there and trying to amuse people. I wanted to speak. I had things I wanted to say. I had things that I was upset about that I knew other people were upset about, and they could relate to it if I could present it to them in a certain way.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, for me, realizing there are certain companies, especially in our industry, that just captivate the crowd in a different way. You, over the years, being able to reinvent yourself and take songs and help take people on a journey. I think that's a really key thing of you taking that responsibility of taking a song and creating something with it that allows other people to understand it differently than they would have before. And I would
Yeah.
say is that throughout the years with you, Abakua, um, from these socials you guys have that just have a certain ambiance to it,
Yeah.
with the live music, with the percussions coming in from different dancers, to the productions that you guys do at congresses, festivals, what have you. I think definitely over the years, you guys have been a staple in my eyes. And now that kind of brings me to my last question before we get into the segment I call the randoms is from everything you've been able to do thus far, and then now presently, or even through last year with COVID happening, and understanding how it kind of just changed our whole dance community on its head, and you being able to still capitalize on the online portion, still giving amazing content to your students, what is, if somebody was to ask, what can I learn from Abakua? What would be the perfect explanation?
I think there's so much that I think that we have been able to do to broaden the possibilities for a Latin dancer. You know, I think one of my goals early on was to give people the 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 possibility, a different possibility of what a Latin dancer could mean. You know, that we could actually, you could do it this way and follow that Congress circuit, but you could also, like, this could be possible. And we would do the groundwork to establish this as a recognized art form in the arts community, and present our work in the arts community, go through all the stumbles and all the mistakes and all the trials and tribulations, so that at the end of it, a young person coming into dance can say, if I want to be a Latin dancer when I grow up, I can be part of this company, or I can be a choreographer,
Mm,
or I could be you know, work on the physical fitness portion of Latin dance, and actually have a job available to me that will allow me to do that in a company where I can take care of the dancers, right? Or I can be a physical therapist in a Latin dance company and take care of the dancers that are performing. I wanted to establish that as a possibility in young people's minds. You know, like I wanted in everybody's mind, but that, so that, because I only had one way to go, you know, like there was only one thing available to me. And right now there's really only one thing available to you. You're either relevant on the Congress circuit, on the festival circuit, or nobody knows who you are, right? And I even experienced that when we backed away from the festival circuit and started to do things in actual theater and in the dance theater community. You know, I would see people and say, oh, you know, people would tell me, oh, people think you're not doing anything anymore. You know, like, where's Frankie's not doing anything anymore, because their only idea of doing something is if they're seeing you at the damn, you know, Orlando salsa con. It was like, I'm working my ass off, but
yeah.
I'm trying to get this arts community, because again, I was thinking about longevity, and I was thinking about, a woman told me when I was first starting to teach, we were at the first studio that I ever taught at after starting to teach in Aisha's hair salon, which is where I started teaching classes. A woman approached me who was a tango teacher, Eva Carosa. She's still around. And she and a business partner were like, would you come? We're opening a studio. We're getting this space. It was right on 25th Street, right in front of Madison Square Park, right? Right in front of that green area there, right in front of the Flatiron Building.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said to me, you know, I can't believe how popular salsa is, because tango was that popular, and now it's kind of flipped, and tango's having a hard time. You know, I'm having a hard time getting people in for tango, but all of a sudden it's like salsa's everywhere. Me and Aisha were in the centerfold of Latina magazine in 1999, I think it was. And Jennifer Lopez was on the cover. And the centerfold is me and Aisha doing a crossbody lead at SOBs. You know, it was the whole centerfold. And I remember the headline was the Latin explosion. You know, it was like this huge thing. Everybody was that was the movement at that time. But what that said to me was, oh crap, what happens if she's right and salsa takes a dip at some point, you know? What if people get tired of seeing me, you know? People get tired of, you know, they're looking for something else, and all of a sudden I'm left. Everybody loves you right now, you know, and everybody's like, no, we'll never get tired of you. They all say that, and then all of a sudden it's hard to get people to say hello to you all of a sudden, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I had to keep thinking about, how am I going to keep myself moving? You know, how do I adapt now before I need to? You know, I left the Congress circuit before I needed to. I started to transition to theater before they threw me out of the Congress circuit. You know, I was missed. You know, why aren't you coming? When are you going to come back? You know, like everybody was fever when I ploy and started to do what I had to do, but I had to set up my future in to a certain degree. I knew the arts community would be there, that if I could establish myself with them, there will always be people that want to go see something cultural, something sophisticated that's cultural. They'll always want to go see that, right? Like they go to theaters to see flamenco. But whether salsa's hot or not, if I can present something that's sophisticated enough that the average theater goer that wants to see something that's being presented that is sophisticated and has culture behind it without losing that cultural essence, without having to sacrifice the rice and beans, if I can bring that to them, wrap it up in a package that they can accept, do it intelligently the way they're used to seeing work done in that arena, then I will be able to do that for as long as I wanted to, right? I would be able to kind of present work to those people, whereas the people that were in love with me right now because they were going through something in their life and they were going through a salsa phase, when they were out of that phase, I'm left high and dry, right? Like where do I stand as where am I making my living from? Because everything was banking on that. You know, I kept trying to figure out how to make a living to sustain what I was doing, and dance was that started to bring me in. And I think that is what people are going through right now, is that they've put all their eggs into the dance basket, and when life changes on you and you realize that stuff is so damn fragile, you know. And I could see the fragility of it before, you know, when I was younger, and I tried to make moves to try and fortify myself against those possibilities. This definitely was not among them to this degree that, you know, I don't think any of us ever could have foreseen, although the signs were all there, you know. And I think that the writing was on the wall, and we were due. And we're due for a lot of stuff, by the way. Like if you start to like read some of these science journals and you start to read, you know, how long it's been since the West Coast has really had that earthquake that we were waiting for, you know what I mean? It's like a whole bunch of stuff that's been like, it's the 1800s was the last time it happened, or 1901 was the last time it happened. And it's like, it's getting around that time where we need to start thinking that might happen again. This is not the only one of those things, you know? And so, you know, it's funny. I think that there was a moment where it was my job, you know, and I loved what I did and I was getting paid for what I loved. That's why everybody that's, you know, your conversation with Leah yesterday and talking about people teaching after 2 years, it's because the possibility of earning a living, doing something that actually doesn't bore you to death and that you don't have to wake up every morning and struggle to get out of bed to go sit in an office. If that possibility of having some adrenaline around you and some fulfillment around you while you make a living is a very attractive proposition, you know, and it is the type of thing that if I can do it, I'm going to do it. Damn the fragility of that, because that's how people end up making it, right? People end up making it because their parents tell them, you can't do that for a living. That's you. If one thing goes wrong, you're in trouble. Like, you need to have something to fall back on. You can't just think about, I'm going to get into the NBA and that's going to be the end of my, like, that's it. That's all I'm going to prepare for. The funny thing is that the only people that end up in the NBA are the ones that don't have a backup plan. Everybody's always telling you don't have a backup plan, right? Those are the people that make it. If there's no other possibility, you go. But what if the whole world has to stay in their house because everybody's dying, because there is something that you know is something biological that is from nature that lets you know you don't know everything about life and you don't know everything about being a human being, and you haven't had your moment to suffer yet. You haven't gone through your Holocaust yet. You haven't gone through your World War yet. You haven't gone through your recession yet. You know, you've had an easy life until now, you know, and all of a sudden here's our generation's thing we have to deal with, you know, and it's like, what are we made of? What is this generation made of? You know, what is our capability to adapt to what reality is telling you is what reality is, you know. And I think the people that are the, you know, the most frustrating to us and to some people who are observing are the people that refuse to take those lessons in, you know, the people that are going to be stubborn and rebellious because they have no other way of coping with the magnitude of what's happening, you know.
Yeah.
And those people end up being frustrating to us, and we say, you know, you're silly, you're taking risks that you don't realize you're taking. Why can't you just, you know, like my hair was like, I looked like Howard Stern when this first started.
I remember.
I look like Howard Stern, and you know what? I didn't want to cut my hair because who gives a damn?
Yeah.
Like what? Like why can't you be a little? Why is that so hard for us? You know, like, you know, what's wrong with like us knuckling up and facing the problem the way the problem has to be faced? You know, like that's what I was talking about discipline, and discipline being different in martial arts and the military, and different in the way people see things, and it takes a certain type of strength, and that strength I was fortunate to have developed that as I was developing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm very aware of the people that are showing a lack of discipline, and they're being, you know, you see them just like you see stubborn children that are fussing, you know, they're being fussy, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we think we're mature and we think we're adults, and we're really just big kids, you know.
Yes.
All that stuff is still with us. You do that stuff that you do in high school, you just do it with government now, and with your job, and with, you know, you're doing the same things. There's still the cool people, and there's still the not cool people. And even when the not cool people become the cool people, they're still doing the same thing. The counterculture becomes the culture because it's cool to be counterculture. So you think you're being rebellious, but you're just conforming to another group. You know, like it's all stuff that we did as kids, and that you can see apparent in children.
Mm-hmm.
And when you tell a child they have to tie their shoes a certain way, and the kid tells you, well, why do I have to do this? Because I'm fine walking down the street with my shoes untied. You know, and you tell them, well, I told you to tie your shoes, so you have to tie your shoes, you know. And we grow up and we're still stubborn kids. Like,
Yeah.
why do I have to wear a mask? And why do I have to do this? And why? And it's like the fact that you still, as an adult, need a parent around to tell you what the moment dictates, whether you understand it or not. You know, I think that's what every parent is trying to teach the kids, but we don't end up really translating that to the kids enough, because they end up still doing it when they're older. And most, I always used to say, man, they should have a license for people to be parents. Like,
Yeah.
I really feel like you should pass a test, and you should, because man, you have a human being's life. Their psychological and emotional development is in your hands. That's tremendous responsibility, you know. Like we tend to have kids for us. Like, I want a kid because of me, like
Generational purposes.
man, you know, like, or even just the instinct to want to procreate, you
Mm-hmm.
know, without considering the ramifications of things you have to, you know. I would say we're adults and we are free to make any decision we want to make. Every decision we want to make. That means that the person that sits next to you on the train can up and stick a pen in your neck at the drop of a dime, right? They can make the decision to do that. It's a possibility, right? That decision exists and they can do it. In martial arts, you don't take that for granted, right? It's one of the things they instill in you. Like, anybody at any time, because you're literally trusting them with your life when you make a decision to sit down next to somebody on a train, or to stand at the edge of a platform.
Absolutely.
You're making a decision to do that. That's your decision, right? The problem is, I don't think that we are always fully in control of our awareness of the implications of that decision. And so the person that sticks the pen in your neck, if they do it, they're ultimately probably going to end up in jail, and they're going to have to live with the fact that they harmed another human being and what that does to you as an individual. I have to, when I sit down, I'm going to have to deal with the fact that I made the decision to sit down despite the fact that the possibility exists for you to haul off and hit me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But that never enters our mind. You know, we think that that person is supposed to take our life seriously, that they're supposed to conform to the way we think they're supposed to behave. And we walk around with this false sense of security, you know, and that's all really coming to bear now with everything we're going through.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the more important conversation right now, but I think Abakua and my journey and my work and my you know, it really, all of it was surface level stuff compared to the teaching and what happens in the studio between teacher and student in the studio, and the way that we try to talk about these things, you know, and I try to bring these things up, and I try to talk to them about using dance as a way to reflect on ourselves and the world around us, and to be better people, you know, and that our practice is not just for us, that me taking care of myself as a dancer, me in the cave, working on myself tirelessly, right? Sweating, bleeding, blisters, you know, learning music, learning to play the conga, doing all these things, going through the emotional and ego beating that you go through and something like that, because it's not for me, you know, it's not just for me. It affects the entire world, you know, and that I try to instill that in the students, you know, like your practice is not, you're not doing this to refine it for you. We got to get that out of your system, you know. You don't realize the inspiration and the way that you can affect people later on because you took this seriously right now for a second, because you used it not just as a pastime, but as a way for us to polish that mirror, you know, and to work on ourselves as individuals, and to understand that the decisions we make have ramifications, and that we should be okay with those ramifications, at least okay, as they say in Zen, meaning that whatever suffering my decision may bring, I'm ready for it. I'm okay with it. If it doesn't bring suffering, cool, I got lucky. But I know that that suffering is a possibility of my decision, and I have to be ready for that if I'm going to make this decision, right? When I got the dogs, I had to wrestle with, am I ready to lose something that I spent 15 years with and grew an attachment to and treated as a part of myself and as a child? Am I ready to lose that? To lose that, because it's a possibility, because they're going to die before I do. Hope. I mean, you know, if everything goes the way it's supposed to. And even if not, it's that inviting that love into your heart opens up the possibility of losing it, of the pain of the removal of that, right? It goes with everything. Forging a relationship, you know, we never think about those things when we make decisions. And I feel like right now it is an especially potent point and an especially potent concept that, you know, we understand that everything is, our entire lives are these like sets of decisions, these combinations of decisions, most of which we're unprepared for, and most of which we don't realize we're really making, not through what the moment is dictating, but through how we've been conditioned and what we've been told and what we believe and what, you know, what dogma we follow. And, you know, all that conditioning is really what's guiding that decision, and not necessarily our ability to be fluid in the moment and to understand what the moment is giving us, because we never practiced it, you know, and we never knew that we should be concerned about those things. So yeah, I mean, the dance stuff is the dance stuff. And I just hope that at the end of the day, whatever I've been able to illustrate in dance is an illustration of things in life that we can all use to study ourselves and to grow as people and to practice being better people, because it's a practice and it's a lifelong thing. And I'm practicing my dance for 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And every day I'm considering, what is this going to be 20 years from now? What does that level look like? You know, what am I making sure that I'm preparing myself for that 20 years from now, not just dancing right now because I can put my leg up over my head, I can do 50 spins, and I'm a young athletic individual who has all these luxuries. But what does that become? What's the level? What's the next level, right? Where does the master look like? What does it look like when you get the glow, like in The Last Dragon? You know, what is the old man in the kung fu movies with the long eyebrows and the long beard? And what is that level going to be like? Because that means that it'll be around for the rest of my life, because you can't do young man dance your whole life. You know, they taught us that in karate. The young man karate is the young man karate. The old man karate is a different thing. You know.
Yeah.
And as my teacher, my teacher used to say, always be found where you were, never be found where you were last seen. In other words, you know, don't ever get caught not moving somewhere, not manifesting movement in terms of your development, right? But it's movement in the same way as in dance, right? You never get caught in a moment, because there is no moment, right? There's no, the pictures aren't reality. They're snapshots of things that are in flux and things that are in movement. And it's a beautiful metaphor for us as we develop, how we develop as dancers and how we develop as individuals, how we age, how our dance ages with us. It's a great way to mirror back to us what life is asking of us, and how we can better prepare ourselves for it.
Awesome. I mean, everything you said is hit on a T. I think throughout both of our careers, especially, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, perspective are really key points of really our journeys, because as we both grew, our knowledge grew, our wisdom grew. We were able to instill the same lessons that we learned during our careers to other people as well. And realizing then you becoming an instructor, that's a whole different responsibility. The people that come into your circle, the people you allow into your life, it definitely has an effect on you. And realizing people like Leah, people like Aisha, people like Lori, people like Manny, and the list goes on. All of those dancers that I've seen come in and out of your company, they have a certain aura. It's a humbling aura. And realizing, especially over this conversation that we've had, perspective and responsibility are two key words that I've taken very seriously throughout us talking. And now it kind of helps me transition to our concluding segment called The Randoms. And this here can bring a lot of levity. We can definitely have some laughs here.
Yeah.
And it helps myself and the audience get to know you a little bit better. And some of the questions are definitely random and wacky, but I think it'll definitely be exciting just to know a little bit more about Franklin. So definitely let me know when you are ready.
I'm ready.
All right. Number one, favorite food.
Here we go with the favorites again. Everybody's thing is, what's your favorite? What's your favorite? That's like it's funny that they think that that's what's going to give them information about you. My favorite food is food. Like I love to eat, right? So if I can eat it, it's probably going to be my favorite at the moment that I'm eating it. I love a lot of stuff, man. I'm a good eater. You know, if there's anything I'm good at, I think my stomach does have a lot of flexibility.
Okay.
So yeah, Caribbean food.
Oh, okay.
You know, stuff from the islands, Santo Domingo, Puerto Rico. That stuff. I have a certain. I don't get to have that for breakfast like you on the island. The rice beans left over for breakfast, right? So when I do get it, it's a special thing, and I think there's a special nostalgia and a special a special connection and attachment I have to that stuff, to the
Okay.
rice and beans.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Next question. What would you consider kind of your go-to workout song? Kind of that song you can put on in the morning that kind of maybe gets your day going.
It changes, whatever the hell I'm into at the moment. I like because I grew up with 80s and 90s hip hop, right?
Mm.
So Come On, Let's Move It by Special Ed.
Oh.
Um, that gets me going. The Pete Rock remix of Down with the King, Run DMC, right? Yeah, I think when it comes to training,
Mhm.
the for some reason the old school hip hop, for whatever reason, is what gets my adrenaline going. It gets my heart pumping. If I have to do something, it makes me feel aggressive. It makes me
Okay.
feel like attacking something.
All right. I like that. I
Yeah.
like that approach. Absolutely. All right. Next question. Dream vacation destination.
Okinawa.
Okinawa, Japan.
Yeah, I'm dying to go to Okinawa. I miss, to tell you the truth, one of my favorite places in the world is Israel,
Mm.
and man, do I miss going there. I've had some of the most beautiful times in that ancient, like, beautiful place. It's something else over there. But yeah, I'm dying to go to Egypt too. I haven't been to Egypt. Okinawa and Egypt are like two of my bucket lists. I still haven't been able to. I haven't had the privilege to visit. But I think if I, like, boom, had to pick something quick, I think I would say Okinawa, because it's been on the list for a long time.
Okay. All right. Next question. What did you want to be at 10 years old?
I don't know if I wanted to be anything. I think at 10 years old, I wanted to be a karate master. I wanted to be Mr. Miyagi. I wanted to be an old man that could lift his hand and float it into a room and lift his hand and people would fall down. I think that's what I wanted to be. Or I wanted to be a Voltron pilot. I
Mm.
wanted to fly one of those. I wanted to pilot one of those Voltron lions.
Oh, man. That's that goes deep. I
Because I
love it.
wasn't thinking about much at 10. Had already started karate, so I knew I was trying to do that, and the other things that were influencing me. Yeah, I think, yeah.
Okay. All right. Next question. What would be your spirit animal?
I am a spirit animal,
Oh.
right? I am the human animal. I'm trying to every day manifest my humanness. I think when I am on stage,
Mhm.
I hope, and if ever I get this feedback,
Mhm.
I've gotten it once or twice, but to be referred to as being a panther on stage,
Mhm.
I feel like that is a huge compliment. I think something in my dancing is very the way that I use my body is very cat-like, and I feel like that feline kind of other dimension, of that other plane
Mhm.
of using their physicality, and that intensity in their eyes, the attention, right? The Zen attention that cats have. Like, if you've ever held something in front of a cat, you've never seen attention like that. I wish my students had attention like that. I'm trying to develop that level of attention. So I'm going to say a panther.
Mm, I like that. I love that answer. Next question.
I am a spirit animal.
I'm actually we might even make a meme
Don't
out of it.
forget that.
I like
Yeah.
I
And
like
because other people should be wanting to be, boom, other animals should want to choose us as spirit animals.
mm, that's deep. That's deep. So my next question, if you could be at a social right now, and this is not talking about COVID purposes, but if you could be at a social right now, what is one follow that you would want to dance with right now?
Aisha Koswara.
Mm.
Yeah, I've never danced with anyone like her,
Hmm.
and if I got one dance, it's got to be her, you know. And I've been dancing with her since I was 20 something, you know. I'm 45 years old now, and I still, and to watch her dance with Henry Knowles, the DJ Henry Knowles, to watch those two dance together, like I could sit and watch them dance all night long and not even get involved. But if I had to, if I had to pick,
Hmm.
but all of them too, Erica Herrera, uh, she that's a bring you to another dimension, like, type of dance. But yeah, if I have to choose, it's got to be Aisha. Everybody understands that when you watch her.
Absolutely. All right. Next question. What would be your superpower?
I am no, I I believe I have a superpower. You know, I can manifest music with my body whenever I want. You know, I have the ability to turn into music. You know, to disappear and turn into music. So I've cultivated a superpower. You know, and I continue to cultivate it. So I'm hoping, I'll get to the point where I'll be felt before I'm seen. You know, I'll be the music will enter the room before I do.
Wow.
So yeah, I have a superpower. I'm trying to refine it, and I'm trying to help other people develop their superpower.
All right. Next question. Special talent that many people probably wouldn't know you have.
I am a really good cook. I'm lying. I can't cook. No, I think the drawing and the art, the actual uh, like fine art, literal drawing, painting stuff. You know, I think that is usually a surprise to people. A lot of people know I do it at this point, and I've been doing it since I was young. But yeah, I posted one of my drawings on Instagram, and there was a lot of, "Oh my God, you can do that too," you know. But that and karate, I think everybody knows already that I'm a martial artist, but I don't think anybody's, the very few people that are still around that have actually witnessed me in that environment. And so I think to actually uh, witness that, I think would still surprise people, even though they knew it was something in my background. There's so many people that do martial arts, and there's a lot of people that do martial arts and don't do it well. Just like there's a lot of dancers that dance, and just because you say you have a black belt in dance and you've been doing, I've been dancing and I studied with so and then you see them and you go, well, you should study some more.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with martial arts. It's like, just because you got a black belt, and just because you studied with so and just because, so, and then you see somebody and you go, oh, crap, that person's for real. So I still think that would be a shock, but I think the art and the fine arts, the that pencil to paper
Mhm.
stuff, I think people probably be surprised about that.
Absolutely, and definitely, hopefully, after this, Aisha says that you can show me, I'll definitely share and support that. So, my last two questions or the next question would be, can you give me three people that have been most influential to you at this point in your life? And it can be dance related or life in general.
Yeah. I have to say my mother, uh, single mother, and she got it done, spectacularly. And I'm such a big fan of my sisters and her brilliance and the woman that she's become. I have to always consider, whenever people are taken with me in any capacity, that I wouldn't be anything without that woman and her doing what she did to teach us and to bring us up and prepare us for what we were going to have to deal with in the world. So she's got to be number one, and then I think my two karate instructors, I think I will never and forever be able to forget and be indebted to them because they taught me to be a man. You know, like they were present in my life as I was developing into the person that I was going to develop into, and their, you know, anything that I was able to do in dance, I was so much of it was due to my mindset and my mentality and the things that those two men made me responsible for developing, you know, that they held me to account to develop it. And my karate teacher to this day, my second teacher, always ends every conversation we have with "stay sharp." He always says "stay sharp," you know. And so, you know, my first karate instructor, the foundation, the little boy introducing me to Zen, the second one, like being the genius that the martial arts genius that he was, and the taskmaster that he was, and the refined human being, the example of living it, not just telling you what to do, but you observed it as he was living, right? He didn't smoke. He didn't. William Oliver, man. Yes, sir. Derek Williams and William Oliver are contemporaries. And nice. Yeah. So yeah, that's the martial arts congresses and the legends and those guys start to come up. Yeah. So yeah, that was the thing, is that those men walked the walk, you know. They weren't doing drugs on the side. They weren't telling me to develop into a certain kind of human being, and then they were out there being stupid and disrespecting people. And you know, I was able to observe a person that was on the path. You know, I was able to emulate them as people, and I think that is such a huge thing to present as an educator, as a teacher, as a guide, as a mentor. And so I owe everything to those three people. Everything else came after I was already established and I already had my bearing, and I was who I was, and so I was going to samurai everything I did. But they provided the samurai, and they provided the Zen for me, and the well-being and the smarts to be able to handle that stuff, you know, in my mom. So yeah, those have to be my three people. I could probably cite another 12, but
I know.
it starts with them.
Beautifully said. And now it brings me to my last question. I love asking this question because the answers are so different. And it goes like this: if you're on an island, disclaimer, there is no Wi Fi. What are three things that you would have to have with you? And only three things that you would have to have with you on that island.
It's funny that you have to make the disclaimer, right? Because
Yeah.
it's funny that you have to make the disclaimer. That's a discussion unto itself. Because the damn phone, like the Wi-Fi, why would somebody choose that as the damn thing they were going to bring on the island? Anyway, okay, so I'm going to say my dogs,
Mm-hmm.
because what the hell, they're going to mess my apartment up if I leave them here.
Yeah.
My dogs, and the other two things I carry with me. To tell you the truth, I carry everything that I would need to satisfy my soul. I walk around with, you know, and that's the dance, the meditation, and the karate. You know, those things are with me. I don't need anything to provide those things, and that's where I find are the most valuable things. Is that you know, the stuff that can't be physically transferred, and that can't be carried, and that can't be sold or bought or taken away from you. You know, your intelligence, the work I have to do would still continue. If I was in a jail cell, in a prison, as a POW, I would still be able to do my work. You know, I still got that stuff with me, so I can still train. And all that training I can do by myself. I don't need a partner to do it. I don't, you know, I can work on myself the same way I've been working on myself. And so those things are already with me. My meditation, my dance, and which are all really the same thing, to tell you the truth. But you know, to kind of separate them for the layperson, I carry those things around, so I don't need any backpack to put those in.
All right. All right. Wow. I love it. The dogs, dancing, and the meditation. Trust me, on an island, you're gonna need something to speak to or
Hell
interact.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hell
We
yeah.
see Tom Hanks with a soccer ball, right?
Right.
I definitely love the answers. I'm a dog lover myself.
Yeah.
And now it brings us to the conclusion of our discussion tonight. And Frankie, honestly, for me, this has been amazing and memorable for me because, again, like we've talked, I was that young kid growing up in an adult world and had the pleasure of people like Edwin Rivera, Dave Melendez telling me, you need to watch people like Frankie. You need to watch people like Ishmael Thomas, Franklin Diaz, and the list goes on, and learn from these people, observe them, see how they approach this industry. Because these are the people that are still going to be here long term. Because we know in this industry, dancers come and go. Most dancers' career span lasts less than 5 years if they're not being consistent and relevant, and realizing how from your early days to around 2000, and we're in 2021 now, 21 plus years later, just seeing how people still love you, still appreciate you, still bring back memories, and realizing how important you are to not just the New York community, but the world, because I believe your approach to this art was felt by many. And realizing from your influence in your fashion, from the influence of your dance style, but just your approach to life has really impacted so many artists like myself and others included. And honestly, I could be nothing more but proud to say I'm a New Yorker, to say I'm Puerto Rican, and realizing both of our journeys were very similar, even with a difference in age, us going through that kind of same hardships and self reflection. Because uh, people can also see through this that even though with dance careers, there's a lot of vulnerability, there's a lot of alone moments that you have to understand and appreciate yourself before you can have other people appreciate you. Because I think through the years, we just constantly perform, and don't have those moments to just decompress. And honestly, I've been thankful tonight to have you because just as much as I appreciate everything you've been able to do and more, I know everyone that's commented, all the comments that have come in, realizing how many people love what you do and how much you mean to them shows that what you've been doing has been with the right intention. And for me, I would say you are our community's like leader, one of the leaders. And you can see it or not, but for me, seeing how you've been a key part of reinvention, rebranding, and still being relevant and still being able to give quality content that's meaningful. I mean, it's just honestly, it's been such a pleasure and honor just having you here tonight.
Thank you so much. It's humbling, and it's always scary to hear that you're affecting people the way you're affecting people. But I'm so super aware of that now at this point, especially. And I feel like you know to be able to provide um, wisdom and experience, and from a different direction, maybe, to point to a different possibility for people, so that they don't only think that there's one way to go about thinking about this, and that, if we're going to be teachers, we need to understand what that means. And if we're going to be dancers, how are we going to be dancers for a long time? How are we going to develop ourselves so that we are fluid enough
Mhm.
that when the moment changes, we're ready to change with it. And we don't get locked on and attached to things that are gonna make us deny what the moment is asking for. Stay fluid, and be aware, be alert, understand how you're affecting people, and take care of your 4x4. Like everybody that stage metaphor, you know, the 4 feet by 4 feet, you know, that little box that you occupy at any given time when you're on stage. And that's why I said that, you know, being part of a company is a life lesson, because you know, you have your little 4x4 that you have to take care of, you know, you and your partner, you by yourself. And life is that way, you know, life is that way. You have to do your part. You have to take care of your 4x4 so that everyone can benefit and everyone can be better. You know, you're setting an example of not what it is to be cool, but what it is to understand something about life, and that those are the things that are important. It's not the, all that other stuff is going to be gone. You know, you if you don't realize that now, it's because you're in it, you know, and you're in that youthful, you know, I'll have this stuff forever and I'll be this way forever and everybody's going to love me forever, you know. And let me tell you, that's not how it works. And if you're a good dancer and you want to be a good dancer because you think people are going to love you, it's, you know, it's not really how it works. You know, like it's a lonely thing to do. And I had everybody love me before I was quote unquote a good dancer. The second I started dancing and people started giving me attention, all of a sudden I got all types of people hating me. And, you know, it's like, I never had the drama and the things that I had in dance, you know. So I mean, you have to think about why you want to be a good dancer and what you think it means, because it may not really mean what you think it means. And being a performer doesn't mean you don't cry anymore and you don't have setbacks and you don't have you know, all that stuff is still there. You know, life is still going to present itself, and are you ready to deal with it? So yeah, I'm just trying to be able to bring my message. You know, if it's a smaller, more intimate, more thoughtful, spiritually inclined group of listeners, then so be it. I accept that is my role now. You know, the rock star phase of my life happened. You know, and I had the luxury of that, and I enjoyed it. But now I'm moving into the role of the sage, and I'm trying to do my best to take care of the 4x4 that implies, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, and just realizing too that within even your dance career, you always try to find time to look within yourself and trying to better yourself, because you realize too a lot of dancers' issues of just being complacent and content of where you are and not realizing there's always someone new coming along. There's always some reinvention, there's always a new trend, a new fad coming along. But realizing when you keep yourself genuine, keep yourself honest, but also keep that transparency, people can also feel the human side, because everything that you've talked about tonight are issues that I've been through, issues that many have been through. But having an artist like yourself be truthfully honest about how you feel really shows that human aspect, and people can connect with you more because they can say, hey, me and you have been through that same situation. Seeing how you persevered, it's a true act of courage and bravery. And, you know, again, tonight, it's been amazing. But at least before we go, do you have any contact information on how people can reach you about future online classes and maybe projects that you have coming up?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram, right? Frankie, I think it's Frankie.Martinez. You know, put my name in, you'll find me on Instagram. All our classes, as Mr. Robertson last night put out, we're teaching on Afro-Latin Funk .dance. Go check those classes out and train with us. You know, we're releasing stuff on a regular basis. Training is different, and like I said, all this stuff is about life ultimately, and we're trying to stay connected during this time and be responsible. And yeah, you guys are already talking to me on Facebook. If you guys are here, you probably are here because we put the stuff out in those avenues to bring you here. So I appreciate it. I appreciate all you guys allowing me to stay connected and to keep sharing in some capacity with you. It's important to me, and I truly honor it. You know, it's something that I have a lot of reverence for, and not just respect, but I bow my head to the fact that anyone would want to listen to me for any period of time, and that they seek that connection with me. It's not something I think I deserve, but something I think I'm very fortunate to be able to partake in. So I thank you all, and I thank you, Diamond, for giving me the opportunity.
Now, absolutely. With this platform, it's about bringing artists like yourself that for me means so much to me and I know means so much to others, and giving you that opportunity to speak from your heart rather than, if you realize too, I don't have tons of questions here. This is
Yeah,
from
yeah.
my heart, understanding, realizing like, hey, your story is so important, but I know there's a backstory to that. There's a reason why things fell into place for you. So I definitely think tonight was great. I'll definitely say check the comments. There's tons of comments I wasn't able to post up that some really heartfelt stories by many people who
Oh
listened
man.
in. As well, you'll be able to listen to this interview on Spotify and watch this on YouTube for anyone who's tuning in or wants to tune in the future. But as well, people, I really want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. I want to thank you, Frankie, so much because you've inspired me as a young dancer. And for me, anytime I can have a platform that allows to have artists like you to be able to celebrate your success, I'll do it every time. And again, I thank you for taking your time out. I thank Apache for making an appearance. Thank everyone for writing, tuning in, commenting, and everyone. We've had a great episode tonight on the live discussions with Diamond. And you can again catch this on ThuBakShotTheRadio.com, YouTube, Spotify, and other streaming platforms. So thank you, Frankie. Thank you, everyone. And please have a safe night. Thank you all.